Hello and welcome to Their Voice, a show about animals where we like to consider all animals to be treated like an individual. I'm very, very honored here today to have a very good friend. It's been quite a few years. Actually, I'm not even sure how many, but it's been a long time.
Quite a bit.
You've been in and out of my life quite often.
Mm.
Jill DeCaserta, a very good friend. Met you through somebody else, and it turns out I already knew you. And because I knew you before Jody, right?
Oh, absolutely.
I
Yeah.
knew you before Jody.
I think I went to the shelter and introduced myself.
Yeah, okay.
That's what it was.
I remember, yeah.
Mhm.
And you're honestly, I was thinking about this today. You're one of those people that you meet and you just feel like you've known them for many, many years.
Yeah, well, I
If you
feel
ever
that
need
way
to-
about you too.
Yeah, if you ever need to kill anybody or hide a body, you could always count on me.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Very impressed with what you've done. I Facebooked you a couple days ago. I was looking up different things, and I wasn't even sure if we were able to get you yet, so I'm happy you did come.
Well, thank you.
The Nutmeg Clinic.
Mm.
How long have you been there?
Well, since we opened it, since we started it, and that was in August of 2012, so we're coming up on 3 years, almost.
Already.
Yeah.
Now, were you part of you weren't part of Feral Care, were you?
Yeah, I kind of weaseled my way in after a while. I always wanted to be part of Feral Care when it first started. And in the beginning, it sounded like, they had enough people, or at least from one of the people who was running it. And they said, you go do your rescuing and trapping and stuff, and we're here to do the clinics. And I thought, okay, but it turns out that, other people that belonged to Feral Care had found out about that later and said, we always would have wanted you to be part of it. So I always felt honored that when I really officially joined them, it was a really cohesive unit, and I was really part of that. So it is a great group.
Now, before Nutmeg, I still want to keep talking about it, but I want to jump back a little bit to Paws.
Sure.
Paws is an organization out of Norwalk.
Mm-hmm.
Do you even know how long
They've been around probably 52 or 53 years. I'm sure you didn't know that.
Never have guessed.
Yeah, but it started in someone's vet office by one lady named Betty Long.
Okay.
Yeah. So she started it with Westport Animal Hospital, I believe, and then moved it to different vets' offices, still doing rescue through a vet, but on a very small scale. And then about 15 or so years ago, they were able to get enough monies to get the location that they have now.
That's a history right there.
Yeah, absolutely.
You were there for how many years?
Just about 3 years. I seem to cycle that way.
3 years.
3 years here, 3 years there. I'm coming up on 3 years. God knows where I'm going to go next. So.
What can you tell us about Nutmeg that people may not know when it comes to your services, or because I know there's a lot of people, because even myself, I'm always promoting you guys.
Thank you.
And a lot of people still don't know that there are resources locally, and one of the things is Nutmeg Clinic.
Yeah, Nutmeg really is not just a business. We're a nonprofit organization because we're part of the umbrella is Feral Care. And it's just the step up, the next step to what, Feral Care started, which were monthly spay-neuter clinics for feral cats, and sometimes a few, domestic strays that ended up getting thrown out. This just became the next inception of doing it instead of once a month, 4 days a week for cats and dogs, and any, rescue, shelters, owned pets. And we do it, it's not to say that people don't know about it, but the reason why we offer this is not because there are any cheap services done or anything. I just heard today from somebody who said a vet had mentioned, the reason why they're cheap is because they use subpar equipment and they use all kinds of things.
People have said that to me about you guys.
Yeah, and that's actually not true at all. We are a veterinary office with licensed veterinarians, and we use anything that a regular vet's office would use. It's just that the way we do things is unlike a vet's office where we do surgery all day long. And when you do volume and you have a specific system and you time it accordingly, you can do more surgeries, but also with the same kind of sanitation and care.
Yeah.
And actually, that's not where our sign is. Actually,
Yeah, you moved it. That's,
yeah, it never was there. That's Photoshop there. But that was our hope, to get that big sign right on top of our building. We never could do that. But anyway, onward and upward at some point.
How many cats would you say you guys do? Let's say in a day.
In a day? Well, we have capacity for 20 or so domestic cats, but we could do any number of feral cats because we have a feral cat room. So, but on any given day, we'll have around 30 animals. And that's just about where we're at now. Because I think when we started, we probably had like 5, 10, because of course people hadn't heard about us yet. But we can accommodate at least 16 or 17 dogs plus 15 or 20 cats. But, you also control that because you want to make sure that, all the animals are getting the time that they need for their surgeries, and, everything's done properly, and great care is always done. But yeah, we've done as many as 35 to 40 on a given day.
So now, as you can see here, somebody posted a picture of why spaying and neutering is important. Let's see, reduces spaying, reduces marking. Oh, good. Yep.
There we go.
Roaming, aggression, lifespan,
Yeah,
overpopulation, risk of cancer.
All
Yeah,
those things.
That's pretty much it.
Those are a lot of good reasons to spay and neuter, because there are arguments against it too. Where they say that in cases where I just read about, was it Goldens that have hip dysplasia problems because of the fact that the hormones are no longer in their system. I asked that of our vet, and he said the negatives or the positives outweigh the negatives because it doesn't happen in every animal. So, the risk of cancers and other things are so much higher, but the things that you hear mostly from people, why they want to spay neuter, is not so much for the altruistic reasons, but for the fact that my cat's yowling and driving me crazy, or my dog is marking all over the house, or I can't have one more litter of puppies. So it's all because of people's personal reasons, or that of inconvenience. But that's okay. We'll take it. We'll spay your animal.
But it's sad that yesterday, I don't know if you know Nicole Wells.
Yes.
Yeah, she had contacted me because she knew somebody who was, young couple, just a couple who are just not informed, who have a pit bull, and their thing again was, oh, we don't want to do it for all the wrong reasons. Plus, the bottom line is, well, you can make money off of these puppies.
Sure you can.
And my thing is, coming from an animal control background, I don't see the supply and demand. Like, it may exist, but those dogs are still ending up at the shelter.
Imagine that.
And sadly, even the mothers, which really does kill me when you see the mothers, still lactating. You could just tell the babies were pulled away way too young. And now they're being dropped off or dumped at, like, one of the local parks. And it's and I'm like, well, there's your money. You're making your money, but yet, who's buying it? And then you have people actually, they'll show up to the shelter with, a blue nose or a red nose. And I look at the dog and I'm like, well, I'm not a huge fan of actual colors. I just like dogs. I don't care. But the sad thing is, you could tell, and they'll tell me like, oh, I spent $1,500 from this dog, from a professional breeder. It's a purebred pit bull. And like, there's really no such thing as a purebred pit bull.
That's right.
But it's a shame. But again, there is some type of supply and demand, but I just don't see the end result of it because they always end up at the shelter.
Well, here's a good example. We had a vet who worked with us for a time, and she told me the story just before Nutmeg started, and she said that, I guess it was somewhere in Westchester County, where they're very strict about having animals vaccinated, and these were people who were selling pit bulls. And, they'd come in with their basket of puppies, and they'd go there and they'd pay their amounts for their, rabies vaccines, and because it was certainly well worth it, knowing that they would get hundreds of dollars on each animal.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And maybe a year later, she'd be at a vet's office or a shelter euthanizing those very puppies that she had vaccinated as babies. So unfortunately, they fulfilled the initial person's need, but for the person who bought them, they became discarded. And that's very, very sad.
And that's the cycle.
Yep.
And it's a shame. How many pit bulls do you see at the clinic?
Oh, my goodness. A real lot.
Really?
Yeah, it's wonderful. Well, the local Bridgeport shelter actually has been pretty good about adopting out animals, and they've developed a system where, you know, the animals don't go to the owner first. The owner picks up the animal at our clinic after they've been spayed or neutered. And that's been working out fairly well. But a lot of the animals have been pits, not only from there, but also from owners. And people love their pit bulls. They, you know, they really hate the stigma that they've got.
Yeah, that's sad. You get a lot of pregnant mothers with people asking to abort.
Hardly. Yeah. It's, you know, it seems like it's unfortunate because cats are considered less important than dogs. Yeah. And when you see a pregnant female, many times they're ferals, and a lot of people are like, I just can't deal with this. So they're sometimes relieved. On a couple of occasions, I've had owners who, you know, we're very discretionary when we're getting the animals out, and we have to tell them certain health issues. You have skin issue, you need to see your vet about this. Your dog had retained baby teeth because when we open their mouth to intubate them, you know, and we always tell people if we notice something that we can't help them on, at least we said, listen, we did a minor exam and here's what you need to do. Most people are, happy about that. But when it comes to the pregnant ones, we usually say, and we have this to show you. And on some occasions, you see people crying, like as if they said, oh my God, what have I done? I've killed something. And you have to talk them off the ledge. And sometimes you have to counsel them, like you would have, and said, try to think about like what you've now just stopped. You know, so you're probably better off. On a couple of occasions, I've had to talk to them the next day because they're just sitting there, and I feel like a counselor. And I'm like,
That's part of the job.
Yeah, exactly. But it's more likely with cats that you find that are pregnant than dogs. A lot of people are very careful about, whether or not they're going to abort their dog.
My main issue with cats actually at animal control is always the fact that, people will just allow their dogs to roam, or if they want to get rid of them, there are some that will toss them. But cats, to me, always get the short end of the stick because they just get dumped. And
Doesn't
the idea
matter.
is, they'll be fine.
Oh, sure they will.
And I'm like, and it's usually like, well, how old is the cat? Which doesn't matter how old, and the cat shouldn't be dumped, but it's like, oh yeah, the cat's, a year old or 2 years old, and it's like a month before winter. And I'm like, are you insane? Just bring the cat in.
They don't care.
And their thing is, for some reason, they just always assume that, the cats will adapt, they'll be fine. And it's like, why
They don't know better.
Just don't release anything. You really shouldn't. But
they're wild animals. That's their
the
instinct.
local shelter now in town is no longer taking cats.
Yes.
So that's an issue because I took everything in. I didn't care, and especially cats, because to me, I am a hoarder. I'm a legal hoarder, and I love all my cats, and they're all misfits, and they all have issues, and I don't love them. I couldn't love them anymore.
Yeah.
But I always feel bad driving around because you could usually tell if it's a feral cat or not.
Absolutely.
And I will go up and pick them up and end up trying to find them a home. But that's just the craziness of that world.
Unfortunately, yeah.
How many ferals do you guys deal with?
Well, when we did feral care, the once-a-month clinics were pretty impressive. You could do anywhere in a day with 8 or 9 volunteer vets. Everybody was a volunteer. Nobody got paid. And that was the most wonderful thing about feral care. So for 6 years, I'd say that it started in 2006, but for about 5 of those years, the clinics happened once a month for about 10 months out of the year.
At the zoo?
Sometimes at the zoo. Initially, it was at...
Pause.
And it was there. It started out at Cannondale Animal Hospital.
Really? See, I never heard that.
See,
Okay.
Dr. Oh God, what was her name?